So I kind of wanted to come on here and talk about my testimony. I wanted to do my makeup before, but I'm just like, no, let me just, kind of lazy, honestly. So I'm just gonna say it. But like, I just want to say before I do, isn't this Bible so cute? Like, I literally love this Bible. I love simple beige colors because I just feel like I get overstimulated when there's like too much color or whatever, and I just love beige. Pretty. Anyway, so I kind of want to talk about some things that have been my heart to talk about regarding God. Where I'm at. I don't want to lose my spot. I also love this Bible because it has pages that you could like write on, pretty much. Like every page, there's like a spot you could like write down like notes or whatever, and it's just nice. I like Bibles like that have space for you to do that. But I have my coffee. But let's go. Let me talk. So when I literally grew up in church, kind of the same normal story a lot of Christians give. They're like, I grew up in church, knew the Christianese, knew the prayers, whatever, like knew the stories of the Bible and all that. And I just really thought, I understand it. Like, I'm a Christian, I'm saved, I totally get God, whatever. And but there was no more to you get it, understand God, whatever. I didn't really have a relationship with God at all. Like, never pursued a relationship with him. Didn't read my Bible. I just prayed. The most times I really prayed to him was when I needed something. It wasn't like prayers were just to converse and have time with God. And that was just my normal way. My relationship with him wasn't deep. It was just a very shallow relationship. Then I ended up getting involved and having this courtship with a pastor's son. We ended up starting to go to his church at the Potter's house. And then I think he had a personal relationship with God. He prayed, he read his Bible every single day. And I remember thinking, well, that kind of makes me feel more interested to do that too, because he's involved in that, to start to take my relationship with God serious. But even then, when I thought that I wasn't. I wasn't reading my Bible still. I talked about God a lot. I was very happy talking about God. God made me very happy at the conversation. But I never had a real encounter with God before. It was just kind of very, not shallow, but more shallow. Kind of not really a deepened appreciation of God. Not really. And then also I was young. I didn't make obviously I was a sinner, but I didn't make these mistakes and go out in the world and do my own thing and have time where I really had a repentant heart in a way. I didn't understand when people said, oh, I did all these crazy things. It's I didn't do those crazy things, but I kind of understanding to go to God, but I didn't really get it. That relationship ended because I did not feel like I deserved him. I really didn't. And I was trying to seek this fulfillment and void that I had with this relationship, and it didn't give me that at all. No, not at all. It was just more depressed as time passed, and I just didn't understand it. I really thought that my future husband was going to fill every need that I needed, emotionally, spiritually, every single thing. I really thought. I thought once I get married, Taylor's old time. The end. We're good. I'm gonna be the happiest woman ever. He's gonna fulfill everything that I need. And then, what ended up happening, joined the Navy. I made a lot of mistakes. I was with losers, left and right. I was with a lot of people, fornicated, whatever, trying to fill this void, thinking that somehow I was going to find my husband in that realm of sin. And then I actually did, technically, but I met my husband. We both said, oh yeah, we're Christian, but we did not live for him at all. And then we ended up getting married. I got pregnant very, very fast. We got married, and then things turned so sour. Things were went really, really bad. We were fighting all the time. And I finally realized, oh my gosh, this isn't the relationship that I wanted. And it was almost like the more we talked, the more we did not see eye to eye in a way. I tried to communicate how I felt about things, and he wasn't getting it. And I finally realized for the first time, and I was pregnant during this time, I was like, wait, he's just a man at the end of the day. He's not going to satisfy me. He's not. I can communicate the best I can to him and try to get him to understand. I said, our marriage is going to end probably if we don't do something about it. So I said, okay, we should actually go to church. And I remember when we went to church, I remember looking at my husband and thinking, as everyone was praising and worshiping God, I remember my hands were stuck to the sides of my body, and I just felt like I don't want to raise my hands. I just feel weird, out of place here, which was crazy because I grew up in church. But being out in the world and sinning and getting away from God, it was almost like when I finally went to church again with him, my choice, because I was with my parents. I went to church only because they took me. But finally, when I actually decided to go, for once thinking, well, this is what I'm supposed to do this, but I didn't, my heart still wasn't there. So I remember my arms were stuck to my side. I just felt weird. I didn't want to raise my hands, and I just felt like I'm not going to push myself to do something. I don't feel anything. So I was like, but I know I'm supposed to be here somehow. I grew up hearing Jesus is the way. So let me just try, give it a chance. What do I have to lose? I tried everything else. And everything I did, it's not working, obviously. My marriage is gonna fail. It's failing now. What do I have to lose? And I remember I looked over at my husband, and I remember thinking to myself, he had his hat on still at church, and he just didn't seem like he wanted to be there either. But I remember thinking, I never see him as someone who would ever praise and worship God. That would be a miracle. I don't see him ever being that man to raise and worship God. I don't see it happening. And I remember feeling kind of just discouraged, dang, So then we decided to start reading the Bible, every day. And mind you, I never, ever read the Bible, ever. I never, ever read the Bible. I read the Bible, but I didn't actually sit and read, chapter a day, meditated on the word, never. It didn't happen. So, we started reading it every day, and there was one particular morning, I remember I was praying, and then I remember seeing almost I don't want to say it was a vision. It was I saw in my head fog, and then the fog was lifted up in a way, I was able to see clearly everything, and I didn't understand what that meant. And then I kept praying, and I had music playing in the back with my worship music. And then the next song came, and it was a Disney song. It was Rapunzel. I think it's called I Can See the Light, when they go see the lanterns, finally. And how basically Rapunzel's singing she was in fog, and then now she sees clearly, and it's something that she's never experienced ever. She gets it after all these years of being in her tower, and she finally sees the lanterns for the first time, and things are just clear for her. And I remember thinking oh my gosh, that's totally makes sense. It kind of reminds me of my walk with God, how basically my whole life, it was almost I was in a tower thinking that I understood God and Christianity, growing up in church, and then all of a sudden, when I finally actually took the steps and opened my Bible and prayed and did these things to kind of like, it was almost like my eyes were open. And when you hear God and the story of the Bible, a lot of times you just like, okay, yeah, like I get it. I know Jesus died for my sins, whatever. But then it's like when your spiritual eyes are open for finally, you get it. Like you finally like understand why people raise their hand at church and worship God. You get, like you understand. It was almost like I like got it finally. And there were so many instances where I remember there was even one point before I was questioning Christianity, and I was more interested in like Islam, like studying that religion, thinking that maybe that was the truth. And the thing is like a lot of Muslims, they're very good at logically debating Christians, because a lot of times a lot of Christians, they don't study their Bible, they don't really know how to answer certain questions. And for me, that really got to me. I'm like, well, if Christians can't answer these questions, then Christianity is probably not true. But there was an aspect of that I did not get, and I started to understand it when I started to read my Bible and spend time with God and be like more open to Christianity. Was there the aspect that I totally didn't get was there's a spiritual part of Christianity that this tangible supernatural world cannot explain. And one of these things, I'll give an example. I remember when I was at the Potter's house, they were speaking in tongues and I didn't understand. I used to like make fun of that because it's like, it sounds like they're faking it. It doesn't sound real to me. And then this one day I was like, you know what, let me pray and ask God to give me the gift of speaking in tongues, because they kept saying, just speak. And I remember thinking, like, speak what though? Like, that doesn't even make sense. Like, logically, it doesn't make sense. You just speak random language, like worship, like that doesn't make sense. So I went into the car by myself and I prayed. I said, Lord, I pray that I'll be able to speak in tongues. And if I don't speak in tongues tonight, I'm never going to ask you again. I'm just going to give up. I'm not going to pray about this ever again. I'm just going to see if this is true. I don't want it to be fake. I want you completely to take over. And I didn't know how he was going to answer the prayer because it didn't make sense again. It didn't make sense logically in my brain. So I said, let me just start worshiping God. So I started worshiping God. And then it was like an hour in and it wasn't happening. And I remember thinking, I said, Lord, I started crying because I'm like, I'm not going to fake it. Like, I'm not going to start pushing it, some random tongue out that I think you want to hear or other people want to hear, just so I could seem like I'm like everyone else here at this church. And so I said, Lord, like, you really have to come through. And then another hour passed, I think, and I was worshiping God. I started getting more doubts. And I said, Lord, if this isn't happening tonight, then it's not going to happen for me. So then all of a sudden, my sister walks into the car saying, like, you're taking too long. What's up? Like, are you okay? And then all of a sudden, I started speaking in tongues. And it was crazy because it just started, like, it was a totally different language and it was just coming out. And I'm like, while it was happening, my sister was like, what? Like, it was crazy. And the thing is, it's like, no one can tell me, oh, like, that was just kind of like, no, like, you can't sit there and be like, oh, that didn't happen, or this is the logical reason why this happened. It's like, no, I had a moment with God that this supernatural world, this tangible world, the logistics of things, whatever, it doesn't make sense. But when it comes to God and Christianity, there's a part of Christianity that goes beyond the supernatural. That is a spiritual level that we have to tap into. No one can just tap into it. Only Jesus can open your eyes for you. But the only way you can get to that place is when you are willing to sit and open your heart to that. It doesn't just happen like for everyone. And but the thing is like when I started to like seek him, it was crazy. And I remember there was this one time, it was almost like it just made sense. It was crazy because it was like I was hearing and learning about God for the first time in my life. And it was so different from any sermon and any it's like you hear these sermons growing up, and then you finally have this relation, you start having your own relationship, and it's so different. I said that I literally looked for satisfaction and hope in a man and a husband, and I thought my husband was going to fulfill me in that way. And it was almost like my heart was a forest, and he kept walking past parts of my heart that needed to heal, and I thought he was going to be able to, and I knew and I realized and I learned that he never was going to. But then when I started to open my heart and have this relationship with God, it was almost like Jesus came into my heart, and he looked and he found, and he was the only one that was actually able to reach the deep parts of my heart that no person, no thing was ever able to reach. And it's crazy because I'm just happy that I had those experiences, because no person can come to me and tell me, oh no, God isn't real. Like, there's no way. Like, no, there's no way that he isn't real, because I've had so many encounters with God. I've felt his presence many times. And if you guys have any questions, just you could comment and I'll answer. But maybe in my next video I'll be like dressed up and everything, because I literally am still in my pajamas. But that's my testimony, and I always felt so embarrassed to tell it, because I was like, I was just like so insecure about it. I don't think I was ready. And then also going back to when I said that my husband, I didn't imagine him raising his hands. He ended up getting saved, and I saw him many, many times raising his hands and worshiping God. Literally, do not limit God. Do not think, oh no, God can't do this for me. Don't think that. Because God could literally do anything. Literally. He's God. And that's it.